Hey, hello, what's up, and welcome into this week's episode of the Geek Garage podcast. This is episode number 70, where we will finally be starting our highly-ish, somewhat anticipated series we have lovingly dubbed Informal Paranormal. This is part one, where we will be covering demonic possessions and exorcisms and some of that creepy shit. I, of
Yeah.
course, am Ted, joined as always by show founder David. Say hello, David.
Hello, David. Whoops, that's
Nope.
not right.
Nope.
Hello, Ted.
That's,
I'm
oh,
doing I'm doing great. You didn't ask, but I'm doing great.
yes. In fact, I only told you to say hello, and you've gone way over that. So, uh,
Well, leave it up to me to go go above and beyond the unnecessary and
yes,
unsolicited.
yes. And speaking of beyond, that's called a segue. This
Yes.
episode again is on demons and exorcism and all kinds of creepy shit like that. Interestingly, sociologist Erica, I believe this is French, so I'm going to butcher it. I believe it's pronounced Bouillon. Uh, she conducted a study of 488 societies all over the world. World's a big place, David. Did you know that?
Mm, I, in fact, I did.
Well, good on you. And she found that 74%, almost three-fourths of them, believed in some kind of possession by spirits or demons or what have you. And the highest numbers of those, strangely enough, were in the Pacific cultures. So Hawaii, Samoa, I would assume. It doesn't really go into it and say it. I
Hmm.
didn't read the study because it's about like 12,000 years old and you have to pay for it, and I'm just not about that life. But I thought that was an interesting little tidbit. It
Yeah.
shows that this is a pretty widely held belief all over the world.
Hmm.
We have a lot of fiction and particularly like the subgenre and horror about these things, but for a lot of people in the world, this is a very real thing.
I got that impression just by the response that we received from our fans and listeners, particularly on the Facebook group page. It just kind of fucking exploded out of nowhere. Like, and we mentioned this earlier in a few episodes ago. Like, we had people actually reaching out to us personally saying, like, "Oh my god, we're so excited that you're doing like, paranormal and not true crime stuff, but just stuff that we've never done before that other
Creepy and
podcasts."
occult,
Yes.
right?
And so that in turn made us more excited for this. And this particular paranormal topic wasn't actually suggested by anyone. I kind of just thought it up. I was like, hey, that'd be cool. And first it was possessions, and then we decided to throw in exorcisms, and because
Kind of
they
go hand in hand.
right, yeah. So yeah, since everyone got super excited about it, that in turn made us even more excited than we originally were. Um, and we both of us definitely have some thoughts, which we will, of course, get to here in just a bit. But I believe we have a couple of notes to get through. Isn't that right, Ted?
Yes, that is in fact right. So, David, why don't you take it away on those quick hit notes there?
Dope. So, and of course, like always, these things are typically good for those that haven't listened to the podcast in a while or are brand new to the podcast. So if you are either one of those, welcome or welcome back. Um, First up, we have a brand new Etsy shop. We declared, I believe, last episode for the first time about our Etsy shop. It's now called Geek Garage Gear. It is still a work in progress. We do have a few things listed on there, but hopefully within the next week or so we'll have more items. Mostly it's like stickers right now, like Marvel and DC stickers. There is a Nightmare Before Christmas sticker up there too. Because 'tis the season, but soon we'll have like our actual Geek Garage t-shirts that I make homemade. We'll have those listed up there as well, and we will definitely keep you posted when stuff goes up. Um, in terms of social media, you can find us pretty much everywhere: Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. However, the best way to stay up to date with the podcast and interact with us is through our Facebook group called Geek Garage Podcast Fans and Listeners, appropriately named. There will be a link for it down below in the podcast description. We typically hold like fun, nerdy conversations, and usually there's a weekly poll thrown in there that we like to discuss on the podcast, and there is one for this week. So if you are interested in not only listening to our podcast, but kind of being a part of the conversation and all that fun stuff, then feel free to click that link or hop on Facebook and just type in Geek Garage Podcast fans and listeners. Supporting the show, if you'd like to support the podcast, there are a couple ways. First couple of these are absolutely free. You can subscribe to the podcast if you have not already. If you have, thank you very much. You can also leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. That's a great way to show your support. And once again, it does not cost you any dimes. We do appreciate and only accept 5 stars. Isn't that right, Ted?
That is correct. So help me God if I find a 4-star. You can leave a 1-star as long as it's honest and funny and scathing. But if you leave anything in between a 1 or a 5, we will find you.
Right.
We have a particular set of skills to annoy you.
Yes.
As you've already seen because you left us a 2-star review. So you know this is very serious.
Right. I mean, if it's going to be like 1 star or 2 star, at least be fucking creative with your comments. Like,
Yes.
I'd rather, I'd rather sandpaper an alligator's asshole in a telephone booth than listen to this podcast again. I'd be like, you know what? I ain't even mad.
No, that's good.
Yeah.
Probably not for the alligator, but
well, I mean, or you.
But we shouldn't king shame. So moving right along.
Right. There is one other way to support the podcast. If you are interested in throwing a small amount of money our way, we have a Patreon. We do have a bunch of donors so far, and for those of you that do contribute to our Patreon, we, of course, throw our appreciation your way each and every opportunity that we get. But like I said, if you would like to support the show, we have some pretty cool perks listed on our Patreon page. You get a cool Geek Garage swag pack with a neat sticker and button set. You get weekly updates on the goings on with the podcast that other people, like on the Facebook group page or other social media, when they follow us, updates that they don't get. So you're kind of in the know. And once convention season starts back, we're going to be adding some stuff to there as well. So definitely look forward to that. And if, like I said, if you're interested in supporting us financially, so we can keep on doing this thing and not have to dig too deep into our own pockets to push the show forward, that would be fan-friggin-tastic. So Ted, are you ready to talk about some spoopy stuff?
I don't know what that means, so I can't accurately answer that. But David, put the music in here. We're going to get the shit show on the road.
All right. Boop.
Real quick before we get started on this episode, just a brief recap on this series. We're going to be covering a total of 6 topics. That is 1 per episode, which if you can do math correctly, that means we're going to be doing this for about 6 months. We have chosen the following topics. These are not necessarily the order in which we're going to do the episodes, just the order in which David made his bulleted list. The first episode, of course, is Possessions, which that one is in order, actually. Aliens, Ghosts, Cryptozoology, so things like Bigfoot, the Loch Ness Monster, etc.
Good job with that titling, by the way. We were trying to figure out how to put that, and you were like, how about cryptozoology? And I was like, ooh, check out the big brain on bread.
Well, that's what it's called. I don't know what you want from me.
All right, well, I'll just go fuck myself. Go ahead. Carry on.
Zombies, which have been done to death.
Mm-hmm.
Get it?
Yep. And I get it.
And then OSHA conspiracy, so things like the Bermuda Triangle, Atlantis, etc.
Dolphins.
Yes, dolphins like birds, not real.
Right,
They
not
woke.
real. They are.
Stay woke. Quick breakdown of how this episode is going to go. We're going to hit the Facebook poll that David mentioned. He will then go on about some research he did on the quote unquote religious side of possession. So things like religious history, which religions reserve or observe rather some form of possession, etc. We will try and do that in as respectful a way as you are no doubt used to us doing, which is to say we're going to offend somebody. Then I will
Accurate.
touch on the more scientific side, which I'm going to be honest with you, that's not, there's a lot nothing. Then we cumulatively, both of us, will touch each other. Nope, that's not what that says. We will then
Oh,
touch on a few of the more prominent occurrences of possession and exorcism throughout history. And then we'll probably get to shit that doesn't suck.
yeah.
Assuming we haven't been killed by a demon or a priest or something. I don't know.
Right.
We'll
Just
see. We'll
got
see how the episode goes.
getting struck down in our right where we stand,
Yeah.
being like, I heard you talking shit about my
God's gonna bust down and be like, "Heard you talking shit."
what if God actually talked like that? Like
like
he
a
like he comes down with like a Von Dutch trucker hat.
if
Um
uh if Jesus came back and spoke in like what is now being called like African American vernacular English or like jive, I would
uh-huh.
shit and then die. If
Dude, I
Jesus spoke jive, that would be the greatest thing that has ever happened in fucking history.
that would be pretty incredible. I saw a fucking meme today while I was taking a shit. It was like, what if God came down for 2 seconds, just declared to everyone it's pronounced Jod, and went back up to heaven.
Like GIF versus GIF.
Yeah, I was like, I laughed fucking hysterically. And then I was like, you know what? If that's what it took for me to like not be an atheist anymore, I think I'd be okay with that.
I'm gonna be honest with you. If there was a god and he came down and told us how to pronounce his name, and that we're all a bunch of dipshits who'd been saying it incorrectly for thousands of years, that would be kind of lit. I'm gonna be 100% real with you.
100%.
Now that
Yeah.
we've started the offensive train, David, would you like to go over this week's Facebook poll?
Boy, would I ever. We asked for your favorite depiction of demonic possession and or exorcism in film or TV. And I can't remember which ones I initially added. I think I added maybe four initially, or started out with four, and then a bunch were added. But here are the ones that were voted on from most voted on to the least. The Exorcist, kind of no shocker there, that came in first. This is the of course, the original Exorcist. Second place, one of my favorites, Idle Hands. This one actually had got a couple comments. Some some people try to debate that it wasn't really anything to do with demonic possession or possession as a whole, but I thought it did. So it doesn't keep it from placing second. Next one is Exorcism of Emily Rose. Then we got The Conjuring 2, Drag Me to Hell, The Quiet Ones, The Devil Inside, The Right, Inner Demons, The Last Exorcism, and Repulsion. Ted, what do you think about this list?
Well, I mean, obviously, I'm very, very shocked that The Exorcist won, and I'm guessing it probably won pretty handily.
Yeah, it. I think Idle Hands had about half the votes that The Exorcist did.
Yeah, I mean, The Exorcist is like it's basically like a cultural touchstone. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah,
mimetic. There's nobody that doesn't know what The Exorcist is. You know,
right.
so I'm very unsurprised at that one. Some of the rest of the list, I'm not surprised by necessarily. Maybe some of the ordering, I wouldn't have guessed. But I think it's a pretty good representation of popular media over the last 3 to 5 decades.
Right.
It skews a little newer, but again, that is not surprising to me.
Yeah.
I will say that Drag Me to Hell is underrated.
I say that too. I fucking love that movie, and I remember seeing it in theaters, and I was, as the kids say, shook
Yeah,
afterwards.
I think that's a very underrated film. But I mean, I really like Sam Raimi, so I'm going to
Hmm.
say that pretty much regardless. I- you know, The Right, okay. I mean, I like Anthony Hopkins, but like,
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
think I've seen that
You
one.
know,
There's a
it's not terrible, but it's all
okay.
right. You know.
Oh, yeah, I think I'm familiar with it, but, there's a couple on here that I have not seen, so
Yeah. I am a little surprised that the last Exorcism got any votes. I would like to know off air who voted for that so that we can mock them to one
alright.
another.
Yeah, we'll see.
No, that's a joke. Not kind of maybe, but um, yeah. I mean, and the Exorcism of Emily Rose. I've never seen that, but like that movie is so divisive. There are some people that swear it's good actually, and there are some people that are like, no.
So, take this however you want. I have seen this movie a total of one time, and that was in the theater when it was first released. And I remember really liking it. Of course, the Exorcist. I think I've talked about this a couple times on the podcast already. The Exorcist was kind of like one of my very first horror movies, especially horror movies that I saw in like my formative years. So like the idea of exorcisms in movies and possession like definitely appealed to me as a horror movie trope theme, whatever you want to call it. It appealed to me more than really anything else, like ghosts or zombies, whatever you know what other subgenres are out there. So I remember really liking it. However, I like I said, I have not revisited it since then. And of course, I think this movie came out in like 2005. So yeah, I don't. I can't really say if it's aged well or held up or is still a good movie. So I don't know. Maybe it is.
Yeah, I can't imagine that it's held up too well. But that's,
Yeah, we'll
my
see.
opinion.
Yeah.
I will say the thing that's cool about The Exorcist, and I think this is probably true. It's true for you. I'm going to say now it's true for me as well. I think it's probably true for a lot of our listeners and probably people in our age bracket. Like, obviously, it's like a super well known movie and was very popular and spoken of in like these hushed and reverential tones by horror enthusiasts since its release.
Mm.
And then it got re released in like what 1999 or 2000
Yeah.
as the quote unquote version you've never seen before. So like the director's cut, essentially, I would guess.
Right. Yeah.
And I remember this was like a pretty big deal that it got re-released. This is kind of before
Right.
every DVD that came out had the director's cut. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, I remember renting that, and I had to watch the entire movie. This is the only time I've ever done this. I had to watch the entire movie with my hand on the stop button. I was so fucking uncomfortable watching that movie. I was probably 13.
Yeah, so we're probably around the same age
Yeah.
when we saw this for the first time. So it was so you saw the what'd you call it, the version you've never seen before,
Yeah.
or the director's cut. That was the first time you watched the movie.
Yes.
Okay, that was the first time for me too. I spent the night at a buddy's house back in high school, and yeah, he showed me. He was like, "Have you ever seen The Exorcist?" And I was like, "No." And he's like, "Dude, I got the copy. It's like the director's cut. It's got the spider walking in." And I was like, "I don't know what any of that means, but
Oh,
okay."
you can learn today.
That's basically what he said. You gonna learn today. And boy, did I learn! I
Did
learned
you
how
ever?
I learned how quickly I could piss myself. That's exactly what I learned. No, this movie just fucking floored me.
Yeah.
And
William
I
Friedkin, man.
yeah, what a goat. I just recently rewatched this. It's streaming on HBO Max right now.
Or now
So
or go or whatever the fuck it's called now.
yeah, I think it's HBO Max. Unfortunately, it is not the director's cut. It's the just the regular theatrical release. So it doesn't have. I think the main two things are the spider walk when she comes down the stairs, and then it's like an extended or alternate ending, extended or alternate ending. One of those two. There might be I think there's a few more flashes of Captain Howdy too. Um,
Pazuzu.
is it Captain Pazuzu?
No, it's I think Reagan. It's been a while since I've seen it, so my details are probably a little fuzzy, but I think he's referred to as Captain Howdy, but it's actually supposed to be the demon Pazuzu.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah,
the more
maybe
you
that's one
know.
of the other differences than what the thing is referred to. I can't remember. Like I said, it's been a while since I've seen it.
Yeah.
The thing about this movie is, like I said, I was so terrified of it the first time I watched it that I like immediately wanted to seek it out and watch it again.
Really?
And then I watched it again in college with a couple of my roommates, one of whom was like very religious and sort of like very sure of the fact that anyway, and it was just kind of funny to me.
To experience it with him?
No, just to watch it a second time, like the things that terrified me as a
Oh,
younger
okay.
kid, like were sort of laughable. But I think that's we've talked about this a lot before. I think that's mostly an effect of horror movies. I don't want to say this movie's not effective because it definitely is. I just think that it's sort of like learning a magic trick. Once you know how it's done, it's not as fun.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
think that's very true of horror films. Once you know that you're going to be scared or that something scary is going to happen, it's I don't think it's as effective.
Right, but I think that's where, yeah, and I know you'll agree with me on this. That's where really good practical effects comes in handy because even though like a scene might not be as scary a second or third or fourth or fifth time because you know what's going to happen, you still have those awesome practical effects to fall back on that you're going to appreciate over and over again.
Yeah, in addition to effects, I mean things like quality cinematography, good
Right.
direction, things like that, like good acting performances, all the things that make a good movie also elevate horror beyond just like shitty blood and bad knife effects. You know what I mean? So
Right. Yeah, for
I
sure.
think all those things ring true for that as well. We've rambled on about this poll for entirely too long.
Eh, eh. Um, yeah, I mean, this is a decent time to segue into our actual topic for the evening, because it is definitely related. We're going to talk about some possessions and exorcisms. And like Ted said in the intro, we did kind of decide to split the research of our main two talking points down the middle. I took the religious side, and Ted took the scientific side, which I feel is pretty appropriate. I grew up hardcore Catholic, going to church every Sunday, Sunday school every Sunday after Mass. I went to private high school, so I felt pretty much right at home doing this research. I was like, oh yeah, I remember a lot of this. And I mean, of course, I've said many times I'm an atheist now, so it's fun to read up on some things that used to be part of my past. Not demons, but like observing faith and whatnot. But yeah, and Ted, like I said, he got to do the more scientific side. But yeah, Ted, if you're ready, we can go ahead and kick this off. We'll start with my religious history and then get to your shiz.
By all means, good sir.
All right, so demonic possessions have root in definitely a few origins. It's not a shit ton. Ted, I definitely didn't know about your little tidbit in the beginning, the like the Pacific Island kind of culture. But I was aware, and through doing research and just naturally, of the few religions around the world that observe some form of demons, demonic possession, observe the uh, warrantedness of exorcisms, if that makes any sense. But it basically breaks down into two different religions or sets of beliefs. You have kind of like your more Western. You have your Abrahamic religions. Which is Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and then you have your Eastern religion, which is mostly Buddhism. Um, As far as Christianity goes, there's a couple of different sects that observe demonic possession, but it's mostly Catholicism and Protestantism. So we are going to basically go down the line and knock out a few things that some of these observe and believe in. And we're going to start with Judaism. So with Judaism, demons are viewed a bit differently. While they do exist, they are relatively infrequent, and even more so regarding like actual possessions. Like they just don't happen very often, although they are mentioned in a couple books. They're mentioned in the Talmud, the Midrash. They both mention demons. They're actually seen as agents of God. The most commonly known demon is Shadim. I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. I tried to look up or research as much of the pronunciations of all these things, all these words that were new to me. So if I get one wrong, please let me know. Don't be afraid to reach out and correct me, because I want to do these little factoids and in each religion justice. But anyways, the Shadim are a physical manifestation of evil. In layman's terms, they were foreign gods who pretended to be the one true God. But they were so infrequently mentioned. Demons only come up like twice in the Tanakh, I believe it's pronounced, and uh, neither are directly related to like demonic possession. So we're kind of getting a theme here. While demons exist in Judaism, it's pretty few and far between. As far as the origins go, there are a few different legends when it comes to the origin story. One states that they are the descendant of serpents. Another states that God was basically this is my favorite, by the way. God was basically in the middle of making a set of what he originally intended to be humans, but then the Sabbath rolled around and he was like, "Well, it's the weekend. I ain't taking this shit home with me."
Holy shit, that's amazing.
I know, right?
He's just like, nah, not feeling them out.
No, and this is the best part. He
Damn it,
left.
God.
Bringing it back. So this is the best part. He left them how they were to show mankind that when the Sabbath arrives, all work must be considered quote complete. If that's not like the Monday through Friday work week summarized for like our culture, I don't know what the fuck is.
I just love that apparently in this interpretation of demons, God is just like, oh shit, it's 5 on Friday. It's time to get litty kitty.
We about to get turned up in her.
Hold up. No, 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 no. I got plans. Okay.
Yeah. That one, it gave me a couple chuckles when I was doing my research. So yeah, it was pretty good. But yeah, that pretty much wraps up Judaism. It's pretty reflective. What I had to say was pretty reflective of the overarching theme, just demons being pretty infrequent, although observed. Next, we have Christianity, and like I said, I'll go over a couple different, you know, sects in Christianity, whatever you want to call it. Um, Pretty much all sects of Christianity believe that the devil or Satan is directly related to demonic possessions and exorcisms. In fact, one of Satan's strategies during the battle between heaven and himself, it was to possess humans. So I guess that's one way to go about, trying to defeat old Jod. But whether he won or not, I think that remains to be seen sometimes. I mean, 2020, I feel like I'm like, wait, did he win?
Yeah, my 2020 bingo card is actually God coming out and being like, nah, this whole time I've been bullshitting you. Say no, and this sucks.
Yeah, that sounds true. Additionally, there are several instances in the New Testament where Jesus drives out evil spirits from individuals. We're pretty familiar with some of the boilerplate ones, but yeah, there is definitely some some mentions there. Uh, I'm going to start with the, like I said, I only have a couple sects to go over, but I'm going to start with the big one. And that, of course, is Catholicism. Catholicism and uh, demonic possession and exorcisms, I feel like they kind of go hand in hand. You know, if you were to ask the average Joe, like, hey, what religion or sect do you associate exorcisms and possession with? They lean toward Catholicism. Why? I'm not too positive, but they sure as fuck believe in the devil and shit. So, but here's here's what I found. They believe that demonic activity or influence happens in one of two ways. We have ordinary and extraordinary. Very original, right?
Yeah, that exciting.
I know. So with ordinary demonic activity, it's simply your average everyday temptations like
Oh,
yeah, hold the phone.
just regular demon shit, you know.
Yeah, right, like I guess it's like that devil like popping up on your left shoulder like, yeah, go ahead and eat that ice cream. You've already had 4 bowls of cereal, of your old man cereal, your frosted mini wheats. So a little bowl of 6 scoops of ice cream won't hurt you.
David, we really got to talk about bowl size. If a little bowl is only like 6 scoops, I gotta.
Only. I mean, what are you packing over there? Are you packing a baker's dozen of scoops?
Don't judge what I do.
Well, hey, I mean, I just openly admitted that I eat like 15 too many bowls of cereal.
There is no such thing as too many bowls of cereal, but that's
You
neither here nor there.
you
Maybe
got
I'm the everyday ordinary demon on your
you,
shoulder.
you got me there. We're gonna need to do our cereal episode soon. I swear to God, we are. Um, that would be fun, like just to do when we have no other ideas, which happens a lot,
Didn't we
actually.
have? We talked about this. What we have? It was like we had like a whole thing planned for it. We even had a name.
Did we?
Yes.
Uh,
Fuck, it was good too.
it wasn't like I'm serial about this or something.
No,
Was it like a pun?
I think so, but it was like something a YouTube experience. Like it was so dumb, but it was so funny. I wish I could remember what it was. Fuck.
Fuck. Maybe I have it in my notes somewhere. I'll have
Yeah.
to comb through. But anyways, getting on with the topic at hand. You know, we covered the ordinary demonic activity in Catholicism. Let's get to the extraordinary, and it can take 6 different forms, and I ordered them from least to most severe. With number 6, we have subjection. Basically, you open your front door and let the devil inside willingly. Like, hey, come on in. You need a cup of sugar. You want to do a line on the coffee table? Come on in.
Trying to
I
hang?
right. You trying to? Um,
What you trying to do, Satan?
what
Netflix and chill?
the let me see that red dick. Oh, looking like some Oscar Mayer sausage wieners up in this
Jesus
piece.
fucking Christ.
Oh
Well, this will be
man.
the last episode of the Geek Rush podcast. We're about to get canceled as shit.
Oh man. All right. Number 5 is infestation. And it's a lot like what it sounds. Essentially, it's when an evil spirit inhabits something inhuman or inanimate, such as houses, animals, or other random objects. Number 4, we have external physical pain. Just exactly what it sounds like, basically self-inflicting harm, or um, external harm from the devil himself. We'll put it that way. Number 3, we have oppression. This is kind of like your entry level of your typical what your prototypical demonic possession that you might think of. It's totally 100% against your will, but you still maintain some consciousness and awareness. You're you know what's going on, but yeah, the devil's getting in there, whether you like it or not. Number 2, we have obsession, where you suddenly are consumed with obsessive and irrational thoughts. Most reoccurring of these is suicide ideation. And for number one, we have full blown possession, where the devil takes full control of your body without your consent. However, the cause of possession is almost always linked to the person causing something to happen, whether intentional or unintentional. So there you have it for Catholicism. Protestantism, a lot shorter. It takes a very literal form of possession, the demons, and instead of your typical convulsing, speaking in tongues, spewing green puke type of shit, Protestants believe that real demonic possession comes in the form of alcoholism, homosexuality, chronic fatigue syndrome, and addictions, including porn and gambling. So if you have any of those, you probably got demons in your blood.
You should do cocaine about it.
You should definitely do cocaine about it. God, I fucking love that name.
That's a good one.
Yeah, being a doctor in the 1800s, yeah, being like, got demons in your blood. So that about wraps it up for Christianity. The last of the Abrahamic religions is Islam. There are various versions of and forms of possession in Islamic culture, but the one that shows up the most goes by the name of jinn. I believe I'm pronouncing that correct. Once again, if I
You
am
are.
not, oh, thank you. I figured you'd be able to kind of like fact check me or whatever you want to call it with some of these, because I know that you are relatively well read when it comes to some of this stuff.
I'm sorry. I'm still just thinking about Netflix and chill with Satan.
uh,
Sometimes I'm amazed by the shit that we come up with.
uh, Me too. After all this time, me too.
Also, I remember what we were going to call our cereal show, but that's
Okay,
neither here nor there.
hit me with it.
It was Serious About Cereal, a YouTube experience. That's what it was. 'Cause we were
Didn't
going to
we
make
did
it a YouTube channel. I remember that now.
Okay, I couldn't remember if like the funny part of that, other than the title, was that it wouldn't be a YouTube thing.
But it wasn't going to be on YouTube. That was the joke.
Okay, yeah. I was like, that just came to me, and I was like, no, I'm typically not that good at thinking of impromptu jokes. I have to plan things out way in advance because I'm not that good at improv. But yeah, anyways, um, so so yeah, um, the form of possession and demon that gets thrown around the most in Islam is jinn. According to the Quran, jinn share a few similarities to mankind, such as intellect and the ability to choose from right and wrong, but their origin is, of course, different from man. And this is actually a excerpt from the Quran. And indeed, we created man from dried clay of altered mud, and the jinn were created aforetime from the smokeless flame of fire. So there you have it. That's how the jinn were created. I know you were just chomping at the bit to figure that out. So
That sounds way better than, you know, the boring shit that the Christians came up with, where
I
it's
know,
like
right? Like we're gonna have an organized list. Star Wars collector cups.
fucking nerds.
Yeah, fucking plebeians. Anyways, so jinn are thought to seduce mankind to stray from Allah, and there are instances of possession that are approached from a more quote unquote scientific place, where demonic possession in Christianity typically involves members of the church, such as priests or bishops. Islam believes that possession is best understood through biological, anthro sorry, I'm going to try and get
Anthropological.
anthropological, sociological, psychopathological, and experimental perspectives. God, that was a mouthful, but yeah, it's kind of interesting the take and the approach that Islam has in accordance with demons and possession, um, coming at it from that scientific place, where more logic, I guess, is brought into the equation. So I found that a little bit surprising, but albeit fun to kind of learn. Um, but anyways, Last but not least, we have Buddhism, the aforementioned Eastern religion. In my opinion, demons and Buddhism make the most sense. Demons in Buddhism can take either the form of a physical being or a delusion, um, pretty similar to some of the other religions and sects of Christianity that we've covered so far. Um, Mara, who is known as the embodiment of temptation, was the one that challenged Siddhartha before he became Buddha. And there are four metaphorical forms of Mara in traditional Buddhism. I know I'm going to butcher a couple of these, but I'm going to try to get through them as best as possible. There is Klisa Mara, aka Mara, as the embodiment of all unskillful emotions such as greed, hate, and delusion, which is hard as fuck. like, uh, I mean, is that sounds cool and makes like a lot of sense to me. I don't know if that's just me, but when I read that for the first time, I kind of got weird goosebumps. But, anyways, the next one is Mir Murtu Mara. I think is how it's said. Probably not. AKA Mara as death. Uh, Pretty self-explanatory, straightforward. There is Skanda Mara, aka Mara, as a metaphor for the entirety of conditioned existence. Also, what a mind fuck that is. Ted, I don't know if you can wrap your head around that. Maybe you can a little bit more than I can, but.
No.
And then the fourth one is Deva holy shit, Devaputra Mara, aka I think it's either Diva or Deva, um, of the sensuous realm. On the night of Buddha's enlightenment, sorry, this particular form of Mara attempted to prevent him from attaining liberation from the cycle of rebirth. Um, Ted, I don't know how familiar you are with Buddhism. I tried to look this up, but I kind of ran out of time with my research.
Mhm.
Um, the is that kind of like the quote unquote goal is attaining liberation from like the rebirth cycle? Like you're basically you're born, you die, you get reincarnated, and the cycle goes on and on until you basically figure out the trying to figure out a way to put it. But you kind of get what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah, so that's a tough question, man. Um,
probably not one that we could like knock out in like a minute or less.
yeah, it's definitely not. Some adherents of Buddhism definitely believe in um like reincarnation and living multiple lives as in different ways as different beings
Hmm.
as part of the process to achieving nirvana. But there's no like, I mean, like any other, you know, serious philosophical or religious school of thought, there's not really a one size fits all definition.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. Um, so yeah, that about does it for my religious history and religious research that I did on the religious side. I do have a couple of documented cases that I took the time to do a semi deep dive on. Ted, do you think it would be better to kind of toss it to you real quick for your scientific research, and then we can talk about these known cases a little bit?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay. Yeah. Well, since I am done, I will officially toss it to you, sir, to hear what you found.
So, like I said in the intro, the science aspect of it. Well, first, let me say I think we should clarify what we mean when we say the science side of this because um, there's not one. But we're not talking about things like you've. I'm sure that many of our listeners have seen this or read about it or heard about it or maybe even think this themselves that there are some quote unquote scientific methods to proving or helping to prove demonic possession or demons or any variety of other things. Ghosts. This is really big on ghost hunting shows. They do like infrared cameras and um, like white noise recordings and things like that. Some of that same stuff kind of goes in with demons and possessions, and that's not science. That's pseudoscience for one thing. So what we're talking about when we say the science side of it, we're talking about things that have actually been at least somewhat proven scientifically that could account for some of these possession stories and legends and myths that have been told for forever.
Right.
One thing that a lot of people have suggested is that possessions and the ways that they are manifested are the results of some psychiatric disorder.
Mhm.
And while there is probably some truth to that, there's not really a single disorder that fits all. You can't categorize all um, possession stories as one disorder. There are a few that doctors have theorized more often than others.
Mhm.
The most notable of those is probably dissociative identity disorder or multiple personalities, as most people would call it colloquially.
Sure.
In that, they're presenting as a different personality when they're quote unquote possessed. Same thing with something like dissociative trance disorder. There's even one called possession disorder, and I guess they were just like, you know what, just lump them all together. That's what it is now. Fuck off. Bipolar psychosis, and then one. This isn't really a disorder necessarily, but like side effects or I guess extreme intended effects of different drugs. Like PCP is pretty. You hear a lot of stories about PCP usage and overusage, and some of them are no doubt urban legends, but some of them are also very factually true, where people develop like super strength or what you would assume is super strength and like crazy shit like that. So,
For
um,
sure.
pretty heady shit.
Yeah.
Don't do dust is the lesson you should take away from this. Um, but I always try and think of there are so many things that we don't know now, right? With all the
Right.
knowledge that we have accumulated throughout human history, there are still things that we're just like, nah, don't know, bro. Just good. We're gonna guess it's this. I can't imagine what some of these things would have appeared to people, would have appeared as to people even 100 years ago who don't have the knowledge that we do now. Like, consider the scientific advances we made in the last 100 years, and then think about, or 150 years, or whatever timeline you want to use, and think about somebody in, you know, 85 BC, and their kid is suddenly like speaking in a language they don't recognize, which is really probably gibberish,
Right.
because they're having like an epileptic episode or multiple
Yeah.
personality disorder, something like that. You're probably going to think it's the devil too. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, I, from a rationality standpoint, I can follow the logic, quote unquote logic of someone thinking like, oh, this is the devil infecting my child. Um, but we also have the benefit of hindsight's not really the right word, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah,
That
definitely.
said, I'm sure I just pissed off all of our listeners because they were just like, we just want to hear fucking cool stories, you dick.
No, I mean, like it's worth bringing up this topic because it is the other side of the coin. Like, you know, uh, most of our you know uh, written accounts and verbal accounts of possession and events of exorcism, they were done a while ago. Like the common denominator with most of them is that they were done a long time ago before a lot of what you mentioned had officially been coined. I mean, the idea of epilepsy has been around for a while, but it really wasn't until like I think maybe the 40s that they finally like put a name to it. And I mean, I don't know when like CAT scans and MRIs and EEGs came into the picture, but I know it wasn't in like, the fucking 1800s where those things existed.
Right.
Um, so yeah, I mean, we just, like you said, we have so much going on for us right now in terms of scientific advancements to where we can disprove so much of what clearly was just you know biological abnormalities with this person, or they were suffering from epilepsy, other mental disorders. Um, so yeah, I mean,
Yeah. And I consider myself an open-minded individual, let's
yeah,
say.
a want to believer.
I don't know. No, I wouldn't say I want to believe her.
Okay, well,
Um, I would say that I'm not completely closed. I'm not so certain. You know, there's the famous aphorism. The wise man knows that he knows nothing,
right, yeah,
and I definitely get that. Like, I don't think I'm a wise man, but the more I learn about different things, the more I'm like, fuck, I don't know dick about dick. Like,
right, yeah,
um, so I don't want to completely close off and say that there's no way that any of this is true. I don't think it's true. Nothing I've ever seen, heard, believed, read about, been talked to about anything. None of it points to any of this demons or possession or anything being true. But I also am not so naive as to say that we have everything figured out. I definitely think there are still some things that we cannot explain. Now, whether or not we will, whether or not we're never able to explain them is another matter entirely.
for sure.
But I'm gonna go ahead and go out on a limb and say that God is fake, the devil's not real, and your kid's probably just a dick.
I mean, there's there's some truth to that. I'll say that there's some truth there, if not all truth. Um, I and I'm definitely inclined to agree with you. I still don't know exactly where I fall. I mean, it's not a hard like I believe this, I believe that, but I definitely lean more towards the I don't think possessions are real. I mean, in my opinion, there's just too much that we know scientifically as of right now, to disprove so much of what has been documented in the past. And as time goes on and we learn more about our brains, learn more about our body chemistry and our biology, um, our ancestral lineage, I think it's just going to be more increasingly more clear that um, possession's probably not a thing. Maybe, but probably not. So yeah, that's what I got. Um, but yeah, Ted, you got any more science, bitch, to hit us with?
No, I do not. In fact,
All right. Well, like I stated earlier on, I did do a tiny bit of research on some known slash popular cases. I only decided to cover two because after a while, they they kind of got boring, and two, they got repetitive. Those 2 points kind of go hand in hand. But yeah, it's definitely one of those you read one, you read them all. Uh, so I mean, if you're interested in uh, learning more about um, historical accounts of possessions and subsequent exorcisms, there's a shit ton of stuff out there for you to read. I will tell you that. But like I said, I just did not have the time to dig into it all. But I did want to cover two that I thought were particularly interesting. The first is uh, the possession and exorcism of George Lukens. It's an account of exorcism in 1778. Lukens was a tailor. He resided in London, and he was what they say relatively normal and mild mannered individual. However, a few friends and close observers, acquaintances, etc., reported that he would occasionally sing or even scream in ways that did not sound human. It was also observed that George would appear to be pushed or forced to the ground by invisible forces. After a 20-week stay at St. George's Hospital in London, it was declared that he was medically incurable. This opened up the possibility for an exorcism. When the exorcism was or the exorcist team, I don't know, What if they got like jerseys? Well, like they get
And
like
now
their.
you're starting five. And
Oh my god,
it's got
dude!
like the classic Bulls dun 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 like
Yeah.
fucking who who is the Michael Jordan of Exorcist? That's what I want to know. That's the
uh,
docuseries we need.
right, yeah. I wonder if he's also a world class gambler.
Yes.
That would be litty titty, fam. Anyways, yeah, we should definitely like come up with jerseys that we can offer in the Geek Garage shop. Like that
We
would be
1000% should do that. That should be our next thing.
In fact, after this episode is done and we're done recording, I'm gonna go see if making homemade jerseys is a thing or a service that is offered. So you can bet your bottom dollar that I'll be doing that. Anyways, so it was seven clergymen that carried out Lucan's exorcism, and it was stated to be a quote unquote success. Following the event, it was reported that George lived a normal life, relatively speaking, free of the issues he had faced for quite some time. This can only mean one of three things. He was actually possessed by some sort of demon or devil, and the exorcism was warranted and worked. He suffered from mental disorders, including epilepsy. See him appearing to get pushed or forced to the ground. That's exactly, not exactly, but that's kind of what it looks like. And that's coming from someone who has epilepsy and has watched other people have epileptic seizures. So, yeah. Um, but he maybe he suffered from a mental disorder, but somehow miraculously got better after the exorcism took place. Or the third possibility, he was completely 100% full of shit. There are other sources that actually stated that George's episodes usually happened after heavy drinking. So maybe this is one of those things like you look back, like, did Jesus actually resurrect Lazarus from the dead, or did Lazarus just have like a fucking hangover? Like,
Mm.
you know, you know, you know. Anyways, this is from like the fucking late 1700s. They didn't even know how to write back then, so like, it's like playing the. That was a joke, by the way. No one laughed, but joke. I think it's kind of like the telephone game where you start off in a circle. The teacher has one little phrase, and all the way when it comes back around, it's bastardized beyond comprehension, nowhere near the beginning phrase.
Yeah. I always think of it as like it's one lie that got just like way the fuck out of hand.
Right. Um, and of course, you take into account like how it's been translated from one language to another. I mean, this was probably in English, this particular instance, but it's just there's so much room for like historical inaccuracies, I think. But that's a whole other podcast we could ramble on about. But the second account of demonic possession and exorcism that I wanted to cover was the one of Roland Doe. And if this name sounds familiar, or doesn't sound familiar, it is the historical case in which William Peter Blady's The Exorcist is based on. Some of the events that were said to have taken place were in fact adapted into the book and subsequent film. These included stuff like the violent body movements, the bed shaking, the injuries, both random and self-inflicted, and the mysterious marks on the body. However, there's plenty of liberties that were taken for the book and movie, including Reagan's head turning 180 degrees. No shit there, right? But yeah, so there are several facets of this event that can potentially point it to being a true demonic possession, as well as another in a long line of disproven occurrences that were thought to involve possession. For the most part, it remains quite difficult to depend on what was reported as factual. Um, to this day, a lot of the details of the case have been kept anonymous, including the identity of the boy in question, ergo Roland Doe. Um, this means that there were no interviews or statements from the boy or his family. It's basically just written records of the events that were kept by Father Raymond J. Bishop, one of the attending priests. Um, but a few of the other priests and religious officials that were involved have gone on the record stating that some of the things that were, I guess, discussed later on and that were documented in his journaling uh, just straight up didn't happen. They were like, yeah, that definitely didn't happen. So, who the fuck knows? But here is a brief summary. The events started to occur after a family member passed. I believe it was the boy's aunt, and meaning his mom's sister. If you don't know how family lineage works, the family went to their pastor, Luther Miles Schultz, or Schulz, maybe. After going to their pastor, um, or they went to their pastor after experiencing some odd occurrences, such as furniture appearing to move a little bit and strange noises. Scholes observed the boy for a night in his own home and reported that he too experienced some odd occurrences like furniture slightly moving and lights flickering, etc. A series of exorcisms were then carried out. Edward Hughes, a Roman Catholic priest, was the first to conduct an exorcism on Roland. Later, priest William S. Bowden, oh my God, Bodern, I think. William S.
Sure.
Bodern. We'll go with that. Walter Halloran were brought in for another series of exorcisms. William Van Roo, a third Jesuit priest, assisted Bodern and Halloran during the process. Um, Strange happenings were said to have taken place, like weird marks mysteriously showing up on Roland's body and him speaking in Latin phrases that he apparently was previously unaware of. After the exorcism, it was said that Roland and his family lived a relatively normal life. Now, why it's probably all fucking bullshit. Roland was apparently known as a little shit, basically a troublemaker and a problem child. So it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility that a lot of what happened was just him acting out, just being, because he was apparently a teenager or, um, preteen, and he could have just been being a little dick. The surviving priests that were involved, like I said, had conflicting memories of what did and did not happen. The more supernatural occurrences could be explained scientifically, and some of the things the priests observed could just be straight up imagined. Um, and probably the best source of the argument against this actually being a true demonic possession is Thomas B. Allen's 1993 book titled Possessed, The True Story of an Exorcism. And it's basically all on this topic. I, of course, did not have time to read this. I am kind of really curious to read it. I actually want to. I'm just reading a quick synopsis on Amazon. Um, I mean, it would basically mean disproving the story that influenced one of my favorite movies, horror movies of all time. But, I don't necessarily need it to be based on true events for it to be a movie that I consider good. So, um, yeah, that's all I got for Roland Doe. And like I said, those are my two cases. Ted, you got any questions? Questions for the class?
No, I do not, in fact.
Well, was all this relatively new information for you, particularly about the case in which The Exorcist was based off of? or did was this some common knowledge for you?
A little bit of both.
Okay. Yeah, I was curious as to what you did and didn't know already. Um, I mean, you being definitely more of a film aficionado than I am, just knowing more trivia, I figured you probably knew some stuff. So,
I know literally nothing.
uh, I don't think that's particularly true. Um, you know some things. I will say that. I know that we have a couple people to thank. I meant to do that at the beginning, but we we did have a couple people reach out to us with some suggestions on talking points and whatnot. So Shauna, like our resident horror aficionado, she helped out quite a bit with ideas and jumping off points. Steven, my good buddy Steven on Facebook, he commented in the I think it was the Facebook poll some things to look up. I think he actually he gave us some direction on the religious side and the scientific side. He threw out a lot of the terms that I, in turn, I was going to initially look up, but then you ended up looking up, and of course, you stated a little earlier. And then Megan Zimmerman, we've mentioned her a couple times on the podcast. Good friend of mine. She also commented some good stuff on Facebook. She actually added a couple movies to the Facebook poll for favorite depiction of demonic possession. So yeah, thank you, Megan, once again, and everyone else once again, and everyone that participated in the recent polls on the Facebook group. We greatly appreciate your participation. It makes us look better, and trust me, we can.
God knows we need that.
Yes, we need it as much as humanly possible. So we appreciate your support. All right, Ted. Well, before we sign off here, you want to do our shit that doesn't suck? You can kick it off for us.
Yes, my first one. This is a movie I've been wanting to watch ever since I first heard about it last summer or fall. That would have been 2019. What year is it, David?
I believe it's 2020.
Yeah, still, Jesus Christ, the longest
I
year on
know
record.
it just won't end.
But yeah, this is something I heard about. Like I think it was like summer 2019. It's a movie called VFW. It is a um, throwback of sorts. It reminded me a lot of like the work of John Carpenter, particularly like Assault on Precinct 13. It's got a lot of um, it owes a lot to that film as well as some other sort of grindhouse style or low budget style horror films. It's about a group of older guys who are all members of the local VFW hall. It's set in a somewhat future, but not like hard sci-fi future. So a couple, 3, 5, 10 years in the future, where there's this new drug called hype that is
Hmm,
basically turned a lot of the teenagers and young adults in this local town into pseudo zombies.
interesting.
Um, and basically, some things happen, and these old fucks have to fight off hordes of these drugged out numbskulls. Um, Super violent, super over the top. Like I said, it reminds me a lot of like films like Assault on Precinct 13 and things like that. I dug the shit out of this movie. It is definitely up my alley.
Okay.
Um, I cannot recommend it enough if you're into, horror or action horror or stuff like that. Um, it is not a great movie, I would say. So like don't go into it expecting high art, but if you're into this type of film, you're going to be into this one. It's available to rent on a lot of different places. It's actually streaming for free if you have a Hoopla account. I think I'm one of like 12 people that actually has a Hoopla account. It's an app that you can get if you have a library card. You can log in and sync your library account to it, and they have a lot of like audiobooks and films and stuff that you can rent
Wow.
essentially for free. But
Another streaming service that's connected to your library account.
yes,
That, hmm.
yeah.
All right.
But
Cool.
I like I said, I was able to watch it through there for free, which is dope. But if you want to rent it, I think it's probably like $3 or $5 or something to rent. And in my opinion, it's well worth it. It's called VFW.
Well, my first is it's a documentary. believe it's relatively new, just within the last year or two, I think. It's on HBO right now. It's called McMillions, and it is the documentary about how the McDonald's Monopoly game was a giant fucking scam. That's still kind of new news to people, that the Monopoly game was a scam. I know. I mean, one, it was, a long time ago. They stopped doing it a while now, but yeah, it was a thing, and it was a total fucking scam. And I am not even going to go into any more than that because it is so worth the watch. Like, I haven't finished it yet. I still have one episode to go, but holy shit, like, does it take a fucking turn, and one that you will not see coming. You're just like, how the hell is this a thing? Like, is this real life? It's nuts. So yeah, it's good. Go watch it.
Awesome. Yeah, I know you texted me about it. I don't know, as you were watching it or maybe right after you finished watching it, and you were just like mind blown about it.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't know how to be in my own body for a second. I was like,
Yeah.
yeah,
I will say that I was particularly wounded by this, as for a long time your boy held out hope that he was going to win that son of a bitch. So
dude.
I feel
Yeah,
personally attacked by this news.
I know. It
C'est la
is what
vie,
it
and so
is.
it goes.
Yeah,
For my second one, that's right, I'm doing two. Fuck you. This is our show. We do what we want.
yeah.
Um, Sort of topical. This just hit its 30th anniversary. Well, it'll be about a week by the time you're hearing this, and that's the movie Goodfellas. A lot has been said about this film, so I'm gonna keep it short and sweet. But that movie fucking rules. And anyone who disagrees is wrong. It should have won the Oscar for Best Picture. I will go to my grave fighting for that. But yeah, Goodfellas is just, what can you even say? It's fucking close to perfect.
Yeah, yeah. Pretty good. Goddamn classic right there. But yeah, my second pick is called it's a Netflix show called Marianne. And I was kind of bummed out at the start because, like, it looked good. So as I pushed play, I started digging into it, and like the first thing that popped up was like Marianne not renewed for a second season. I was like, God damn it! But I had already started it, so I wasn't gonna back out now. Um, but it's actually a French show, and of course there's English subs. Word to the wise, of the wise, from the wise. I don't know how that saying goes. Word of advice: do not do the dubs. Please watch it in its intended language, which is French. Like I said, I think it actually defaults to English dubs, so I had to go into settings and turn it off. Because holy shit, the dubs are fucking terrible. Like, I think it's just one voice actress doing like all the female voices.
Well, that's
Um,
that's that's not good.
yeah, and I don't think the translations were very accurate. So yeah, subtitles all the way. Just pro tip.
Way to
Um,
cheap out Netflix or whoever is responsible for that.
yeah, I don't know, but either way, uh, yeah. So it's essentially a witch and witchcraft type of show where the premise is this young author, girl, probably our age, probably falls in the millennial age group, age bracket. She grew up having nightmares about like a witch that lived under her bed, and the only way that ended up getting rid of her nightmares that she would constantly have about this is writing about it. Like, she wrote a series of books, and the series kind of starts out with her doing a reading of her final book that she's deciding to kind of like let go of this character and the book and the franchise, and trying to decide if I should go into any more. Just madness ensues after this. It reminds me a little bit of how Misery kind of like
Hmm.
starts,
Yeah.
in terms of like, there's this starstruck person who's like excited to come to the aid of this person, um And then once they realize that they're not making any more of the thing that they love, you get your leg chopped off. Isn't that what happened? You were the one who told me like the what happens in the book was like a little
Yeah.
different.
In the
Um,
film, Kathy Bates, she just puts a block or a board or what have you in between his legs, and then hits his ankle with a sledgehammer and shatters it.
uh-huh.
In the book, she cuts it off with an axe.
Right, yeah, that's right. But yeah, anyways, s- once the craziness ensues in this show, it's kind of like that. She's revisited by an old friend um at said book signing that the show starts out with, and it gets a little weird. But it's really well done. It's the show is really well shot. And I don't know. It's very hard to explain, but you should definitely check it out. I know it kind of sucks that there's only one season, but hopefully, as I make my way through it, it's decent enough to call a one off. So, yeah, that's my second shit that doesn't suck.
Well,
Cool. All right. Well, I guess we are officially signing off this bitch. If you have made it this far, like always, we are thankful and apologetic. That is our official stance.
yes.
But congratulations for making it to the finish line. Um, like usual, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. The links will, of course, be in the description. Subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already. Leave us a rating. Remember, 5 stars, no less. And as always, be kind, stay geeky, and eat lots of cheesecake. Goodbye.